A little while ago I made a video about the top 10 things in space I am excited about for 2022. Link up top. The war in Ukraine has reduced this to 9. Let's find out why and how it might still be saved. Hello everybody and welcome! Up until 2 weeks ago, the European Space Agency wanted to launch their second ExoMars mission in September 2022 on top of a Proton M rocket. The heart of the mission is a rover named Rosalind Franklin that would navigate across Mars autonomously and take surface samples to check for signs of past life that could have existed on our red neighbor in the solar system. So we have a delivery system and the rover, but it also needs a lander. Here's where Kazachok comes in. The lander, built 80% by Russian aerospace company NPO Lavochkin and 20% by ESA themselves. It would make sure that Rosalind Franklin would survive the descent onto the surface and would also perform stationary science while the rover would drive around and collect samples. However, all of this is now unlikely to happen. About a week ago, Russia invaded Ukraine and at time of filming there is still fierce fighting. All European countries as well as the US have enacted heavy sanctions against Russia in response to the attack. And this is now also affecting the space industry. We talked about this last week, again link in the top right corner and in the description, in regards to the International Space Station. But while the ISS cannot be easily broken apart, any planned mission involving Russia, or more precisely the Russian space agency Roscosmos, is now in question. The Russian Soyuz rocket was used by ESA from their launch site in Kourou, French Guiana. That is now on ice, since Roscosmos has pulled out all their staff in response to the European sanctions. This does not affect ExoMars directly, but it puts a halt on a cooperation that has been ongoing for over a decade. And it is a serious issue for Europe's Galileo navigation satellites, which were launched on Soyuz rockets. So it comes as no surprise that ESA has officially announced that the launch of ExoMars is probably not going to happen this year. The latest information I could find was that both rover and lander are at the Thales Alenia space facility in Turin, Italy. There was supposed to be a final review at the end of March before all components, rover, descent module, landing platform and cruise stage, would ship to Baikonur to be integrated with the Proton launch vehicle. At least the mission hardware is out of reach of irrational retaliation. What do I mean by this? Well, Roscosmos was not done with their reaction to Western sanctions. Director General Dmitry Rogozin has gone on TV and demanded from satellite internet provider OneWeb that they should provide assurances that their satellites would not be used for military purposes. Then he demanded that the UK government pull out of the OneWeb project, otherwise they would cancel the launch. That was, expectedly, met with a strict refusal. To put it into perspective, OneWeb would be out of business were it not for a £400 million investment the UK government made back in 2020. Roscosmos even went so far as to alter the appearance of the OneWeb payload fairing. They plastered stickers over the flags of countries that have imposed sanctions on Russia. As some have pointed out, the workers used adhesives by 3M for that. 3M is the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company, a US company. So basically they used a product from a country that sanctioned them to protest that they were sanctioned by them. OneWeb themselves have now cancelled all future launches from Baikonur and will look for a different provider. And to get back to our ISS topic from last week, the current messaging surrounding the space station is that Roscosmos can only guarantee operations until 2024, since their government hasn't extended their mandate for ISS operations yet. This extension is usually a formality, I would assume, but in the current climate, who knows? However, I still believe that it is unlikely that Russia would deliberately stop the ISS project prematurely. is what I was originally planned to say, but then this happened. Roscosmos announced they will no longer cooperate with Germany on joint experiments about the Russian modules. Instead, they will conduct them on their own. To be fair, it could also be the other way round. The German space agency DLR announced basically at the same time that they are ending their bilateral relationship and cooperation with Russia. I cannot say for sure who was first here, but the effect is that astronaut Matthias Maurer will be no longer doing experiments together with Russian cosmonauts aboard the ISS. I actually mentioned this as a potential reaction in my video last week. So, what other punishment could Russia or the US enact on each other aboard the ISS? Well, each country could order their respective crew members to no longer assist the other nations up there. Usually, I like being right. Not this time. Not one bit. There was also an announcement that Roscosmos' focus will shift to creating satellites for defense purposes. What those are going to be is yet to be seen, but this sounds like a step to militarize the space agency. All of this in combination with that entire OneWeb charade doesn't make Roscosmos look like a reliable partner right now. I mean, even if they want to build military satellites in the future, OneWeb is, or rather was, a paying private customer they have openly threatened. The Russian space agency had been very eager to present Soyuz as a reliable launch vehicle to any partner in the world up until a few weeks ago. But who in their right mind would now want to buy a Soyuz if this is the type of behavior they can expect? Personally, I believe this posturing from Rogozin is mostly directed internally towards Russia and his superiors, so that he can appear as doing his part and keep his position. He is a politician first and foremost. But it does create a lot of scorched earth towards sources of income that Russia is going to desperately need in the coming months and years. So, back to ExoMars. As I mentioned before, the original timeline called for final checks in March and then transfer of the vehicle to Baikonur to be integrated with Proton. We cannot count on the current political mess to be over until then, and therefore the next possible launch window for the mission is going to be late 2024. Of course, until then the relationship between Roscosmos and ESA could already be mended. But what if it isn't? Which launch vehicle could be used instead of Proton? To get a better idea, let's look at the overall payload mass. The rover is just 310 kilograms, but together with the Kazachok platform, lander and heat shield, the module entering Mars's atmosphere will be 2 tons. Then there's the carrier, also called cruise stage, which provides propulsion for course correction maneuvers and power during the trip to Mars. It clocks in at around 800 kilograms, so the payload that has to be sent from Earth towards Mars is just shy of 3 tons. The obvious choice for ESA would be Ariane 6. By 2024, the new European rocket should already have a few launches under its belt. It comes in 2 variants, A62 with 2 and A64 with 4 solid rocket boosters. The latter is rated for Earth escape missions for either a little below 7 or 7.5 tons, depending on which resource of Arianespace themselves you look at. Either way, the ExoMars payload would be well inside the capabilities of Ariane 6. Based on payload capability, there are also launch providers from the United States that could carry that kind of mass. ULA's upcoming Vulcan Centaur, as well as Blue Origin's New Glenn, are in a similar situation as Ariane 6. They look good on paper and are in production, but have yet to fly. The only launch provider with enough payload capability that has a proven vehicle is SpaceX and their Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. Also, by 2024, it is likely that Starship has already made 1 or 2 excursions into space. In short, there are alternatives to Proton should the relationship between ESA and Roscosmos deteriorate further over the coming weeks and months. However, the Kazachok lander platform is made by NPO Lavochkin. a state-owned Russian company formerly known as Design Bureau OKB 301. If ESA wants to fly Rosalind Franklin aboard a different rocket than Proton, it is feasible that Lavochkin would be ordered to pull their Kazachok lander out of the mission. Then we are looking at further delays until a replacement is developed. Overall, this is a really bad situation for the ExoMars mission, which is kind of par for the course. Back in 2016, there was already an ExoMars launch. It delivered the trace gas orbiter into Mars orbit, where it doubles as a communications relay. However, the mission also included a Schiaparelli lander. It was supposed to perform a soft touchdown on Mars on October 19, 2016, but it crashed instead due to failures during the landing process. ESA still called the mission a success because Schiaparelli sent back enough data for engineers to prepare Kazachok for hopefully not to crash. We'll see about that. So that's a quick rundown about the current state of the ExoMars mission and why it can no longer be one of my top 10 things in space to look forward to in 2020. Now I would like to share something personal with you. If you're not interested in that kind of thing, that's fine. You can click away. All the space-related stuff is over. Thank you for watching up until now. So, the personal stuff. My mother is from Hungary. She had to endure the Soviets invading her country back in 1956. A few years ago, there was a documentary about that on TV, and she started crying watching footage of Soviet tanks driving through Budapest. Trauma caused by having your home invaded and destroyed does not simply go away, it stays with you for the rest of your life. Right now, millions of Ukrainians are being traumatized, and it makes me so angry that after decades, centuries of war, human beings are still killing each other because those in power have fever dreams of an empire that will never come true. One thing that I do want to point out though, we have to differentiate between the Russian people and the Russian government. You can be against the invasion of Ukraine and still be on the side of the Russian people, because many don't want this war. Thousands have already been arrested protesting the war, and there will likely be more in the coming days and weeks. Also, many soldiers don't want the war either. A large portion of the invasion force are conscripts who didn't even know they were going to fight Ukraine until they were there. Which in fact circles back to my mother back in 1956. She told me that while standing next to the Danube River, which flows through Budapest, a Russian soldier asked if that in front of him was the Nile. For context, back then the Soviet Union and Egypt had a very friendly relationship. They even assisted Egypt with arms and helped construct the Aswan High Dam. That soldier was under the impression he was being sent there. That was more than 60 years ago, and they still leave soldiers in the dark when sending them into combat. If we want to prevent such insanity in the future, we have to make sure that people in power can be held accountable, no matter in which country. This is on each and every one of us. Only then can we start to become a unified society that can explore the stars together. In peace.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel for more and follow me on my social thingies. The links are in the description. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.